The autumn wind drifted softly across the cemetery, brushing over rows of marble headstones like a quiet sigh from the earth itself. The scent of faded roses lingered in the air, sweet, heavy, and full of memories that refused to fade. Margaret Collins stood alone before her son's grave, her heart an empty shell carved out by 3 long years of grief. Ethan, her brilliant, compassionate boy, had been gone since that terrible car crash. And no matter how many times she returned here, the wound always reopened, sharp as the first day. Margaret had been a powerhouse, shaping companies, commanding boardrooms, bending the world to her will. But here, in front of Ethan's name, etched in stone, she was simply a mother who had lost her heart. She expected silence that morning, space to breathe, space to break, but fate had other plans. As she approached the familiar headstone, she froze. A young woman knelt before Ethan's grave, clutching a small child to her chest. Her shoulders shook with sobs, so raw they seemed to tear the air. The little girl, no more than 2, held a tiny stuffed bear, her wide eyes full of innocent curiosity. Margaret felt a jolt of confusion, and something else she couldn't yet name. Her footsteps crunched on the gravel, and the woman turned, suddenly eyes swollen, face streaked with tears. For several long seconds, the 2 women simply stared at each other, bound by an invisible thread neither understood. Margaret's eyes drifted toward the fresh lilies placed on Ethan's grave, his favorite. She hadn't brought any today. Who was this woman, and why did she care enough to bring flowers? Before Margaret could speak, the little girl reached out tiny fingers, brushing the gravestone as she babbled softly in Spanish. The young woman whispered back, her voice trembling like a candle fighting the wind. She introduced herself haltingly through tears. Her name was Isabella Torres, and she said she wasn't here to intrude. She was here to say thank you. 3 years earlier, when she had been alone, abandoned, and 8 months pregnant in a cramped apartment in Madrid, an anonymous donor had reached out. A stranger named Ethan Collins had paid her hospital bills, set her up in safe housing, and given her and her unborn child the chance to survive. Margaret's breath hitched. Her son, quietly, secretly, helping strangers across the world. She had once mocked his philanthropic dreams, calling them childish, unrealistic. But now, staring at Isabella and her little girl, she saw the truth. Ethan's kindness had grown roots in places she never imagined. Isabella explained she had traveled across the ocean when she learned of Ethan's death. She couldn't bear to live her life without telling his family how he had saved hers. Tears blurred Margaret's vision. For years she had begged the universe for proof that her son's life still echoed somewhere. And now, here it was, standing before her, in the form of a child whose bright blue eyes looked hauntingly familiar, the same shade of blue Ethan once had. Margaret felt her grief shiftless like a crushing weight, more like a gentle ache touched with light. She invited Isabella to walk with her through the garden. They shared pieces of their lives, Margaret speaking of Ethan's laughter and the day she lost him, Isabella speaking of loneliness, courage, and the night one stranger's kindness saved her. Days later, unable to stop thinking about the mother and child who carried her son's light, Margaret invited them into her home. Little Lucia's laughter-filled rooms that had been silent for years. Isabella helped with cooking, cleaning, learning English, and slowly, almost unknowingly, a bond grew between the 3 of them. A bond not made of blood, but of heart. Then one evening, while going through Ethan's old files, Margaret found a letter addressed to her. A letter he wrote just days before he died. He told her about the single mothers he was helping anonymously. He told her about a woman in Spain who was about to give birth alone. And he left her one final request. Mom, if anything ever happens to me, please keep helping people like her. Kindness shouldn't die with the person who gives it. Margaret wept until her hands shook, and then she made a decision. She created a foundation in Ethan's name to help struggling mothers worldwide. She made Isabella its first employee, not out of pity, but because she believed in her strength and her story. Together, they built something beautiful, something Ethan would have been proud of. And little Lucia, always laughing as she toddled through the office, became their daily reminder that kindness can outlive us all. Years later, on Ethan's anniversary, Margaret returned to his grave, but this time, she wasn't alone. Isabella stood beside her. Lucia held her hand. They laid white lilies on the grave. Lucia looked up at Margaret and asked softly, "Grandma, is this where Daddy Ethan sleeps?" The words pierced Margaret's heart, but they filled it with light too. She smiled through her tears and whispered, "Yes, sweetheart, and he's watching over all of us." As the sun dipped behind the autumn trees, painting the world in shades of gold, Margaret realized something. Grief had broken her, but love had carefully put her back together, and in the laughter of a child her son once saved, she found her peace. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Pure Hub Kindness, where every story reminds us that compassion still has the power to change the world.